Sus, I want you to know that I don't own the story or Game of Thrones. If I did, maybe it would have ended with another king on the throne.
For editing. The mistakes are mine, HTTYD is not. Hicuup woke at dawn, turned over and promptly went to sleep again. It was Lagerdaga day, in other words wash day. The one day Stoik the Vast would sleep in. 3 hours later Hicuup woke and started his day, grumbling. He dressed and went downstairs. He proceeded to breathe life into the fire, then grabbed a large pail. Wandering outside, he filled the pail full of rainwater from a barrel located on the side of the house. He placed the contents of the pail into a large cauldron and repeated until it was full. Eating a meager breakfast of bread and a strip of dried beef, Hicuup waited for it to heat up. Testing the water, he found it to his liking and shifted a wooden tub to sit beside it before pouring the contents into the tub. Grabbing some of his homemade soap and a brush, he undressed and climbed in. Nothing like a good soak. Hicuup was thoroughly enjoying himself. He was lost in the comforting warmth and failed to hear knocking on his front door. When the door opened, he had to blink at the unwelcome sunlight. When he recognized his visitor, he blushed rather profusely. "Hicuup?" Astrid called, oblivious to the nude boy sitting in the tub behind her. "Come on, Hicuup, and we have the day off," quickly as Astrid started to turn around. "Could you, just look that way, and exit the house for a moment?" Hicuup stammered. Astrid stopped and turned away. "Hicuup, why am I looking the other way?" she asked, slightly confused. "You better not be sketching me from behind again." Hicuup cut her off in an embarrassed yelp. "It's wash day," he cried. Astrid shrugged her shoulders. "Yes, and?" Hicuup groaned. "And I was washing, before you barged in here." Astrid giggled slightly. "So you're behind me?" Astrid asks. "With nothing on?" Hicuup flushes a deeper color and tries to see where his towel went. "Well, yes, and if your dad found out," Hicuup stammers. "Or Odin forbid, my dad found out, they would skin me alive." Astrid chuckled but made her way to the door with her back to Hicuup. As she reached the door, Hicuup saw her head turn slightly. She grinned as Hicuup tried to sink further into the tub. "Don't worry, I won't say a word," she said, and Hicuup caught a sly wink sent his way. Hicuup groaned as Astrid shut the door. He could hear her laughter on the other side. Getting up, he dried himself off and dressed quickly. Grabbing his weapons, Hicuup headed out the door. Outside, he found Astrid smiling. "All dressed up and ready to go?" she asks and snickers lightly. Hicuup fixes her with an agitated glare. "Oh, come on, it's not like I saw much." Hicuup flinches and blushes slightly. "Where did you get that cool scar on your shoulder?" The blood from Hiccup's face disappears and Astrid bursts out laughing. "I got it from when my mom died." Hicuup whispers and instantly Astrid stops. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Astrid smiles sadly. Hicuup shrugs and gestures for them to head out. The path they take is familiar and Hicuup again notes the stairs sent their way. "Your dad might skin me alive anyway," Hicuup mentions, gesturing with his head to the onlookers. Astrid sends a glare to them and most look hurriedly away. "That better?" she asks and Hicuup smiles. "Well, I didn't have a problem with it. Can't hurt a guy's ego if everyone thinks he was dating you," Hicuup remarks, then rubs his shoulder where Astrid hit him. "Hey, the bruises might make the story more believable," Hicuup quips, then holds his hands up in a defensive position while Astrid glares at him. "So yeah, quit while I'm ahead, got it." Astrid smiles. The rest of the walk is uneventful. Sparring begins and they spend the normal hour practicing with their desired weapons, only Astrid throws in a twist. Instead of her axe and shield, she drops the shield to wield the axe with two hands. This would create more openings for Hicuup, but would destroy the rare attempt when Hicuup tried blocking. The first fight was incredibly different. Hicuup had far more trouble than before. "Were you going easy on me before?" Hicuup asked. They had been fighting for 10 minutes now and Astrid was doing a lot better. Her movements were faster, the strikes held the same graceful precision as before, and she had a lot more mobility. Hicuup was forced to continuously dodge and evade, finding even his best parries taxing. At the 20-minute mark, both of them were panting heavily. Astrid saw this as an achievement. Normally Hicuup wouldn't be at this point till near the end of the hour. With exhaustion came mistakes, earning the pair a few nasty smacks to the extremities, but nothing that would be considered a fatality. At the half-hour mark Hicuup couldn't take it, he needed this to end, and the quicker the better. Long-duration fighting wasn't something Hicuup was meant for, he probably went too far already. They circled each other, then Astrid charged, bringing her axe down over her head. Hicuup backstepped and the weapon hit the ground. As quickly as he could, Hicuup kicked the weapon in Astrid's hand. It twisted, and before she could move it away, Hicuup stepped on the blunt side. His weight caused the weapon to sink to the ground, pulling Astrid into a crouch. Hicuup raised his weapons to strike her back, but Astrid abandoned her weapon and lunged into Hiccup's midriff. With a humph, Hicuup lost hold of his weapons and fell back to the stone floor, Astrid still holding on. With a quick roll and faster than Hicuup could think, Astrid had him pinned to the ground. Hicuup struggled a little, then huffed, "He lost." Astrid giggled slightly, then her face blanched as a voice cut through the ring. "Astrid Hofferson," the voice shouted, "what in Odin's name do you think you're doing?" Astrid rolled off Hicuup and quickly got to her feet before looking to the voice's owner. Hicuup got up and dusted himself off and followed Astrid's slightly worried eyes to a very agitated Gunnar Hofferson's face. "Nothing, Dad, we were sparring." Astrid gestures to the weapons. "We were both disarmed. I was pinning him to the ground for the win." Gunnar looked at Hicuup, the axe on the floor, and the two short swords on the ground. "Wait outside, Astrid, I want to talk to Hicuup." Gunnar commanded, and Astrid walked slowly out of the ring. Hicuup was left standing with the third most powerful Viking in Berk. Gunnar Hofferson, not only is he one of the best dragon slayers, but he also is the head of the house for the second oldest family line. "Mr. Haddock, I would like to ask you something." Gunnar said politely, meaning Hicuup was caught off guard. "Of course, sir." Hicuup said it was best to avoid angering this man. "I want to know what your intentions are." His eyes narrowed. "With my daughter, you see, the young Jorgensen boy told me the two of you have been sparring together, and I find that odd, a fishbone like you fighting my daughter." He gestures at Hicuup. "That's like suicide. Then only yesterday I saw the two of you holding hands." Gunnar's face darkens. "And now I catch her on top of you. My father killed other men for less." Gunnar glared at Hicuup, who crossed his arms and glared at Gunnar. Snotlaut was telling the truth. "I have been sparring with Astrid for 3 days now, ever since I told her about the deal with my father." Hicuup scratched his head, hoping not to have to explain the deal to Mr. Hofferson. "Who better to spar with the best?" Gunnar's mouth twitched into a smile. "I may not be a dragon killer, sir, but I can still fight. My mom taught me everything she knew," Hicuup asserted. Gunnar's smile vanished into a look of disbelief. "And yes, we were holding hands." Hicuup blushes. "But my intentions are honorable. I was taught well, sir," Hicuup assured. "I wouldn't do anything unbecoming." Gunnar raised an eyebrow. "I mean, I wouldn't say no, but it's not like I could get her to do anything with me." Hicuup gestured to himself. "I mean, you saw that. She could snap my wrist like a twig." Hicuup rambled, and Gunnar, who started to chuckle, burst out laughing as Hicuup turned bright red. "You have a point there, young man. I knew I should have smelled a rat. That Jorgensen boy has always been a little too forward with my daughter." Gunnar rubbed his chin. "And what's this deal you mentioned? Anything to do with the chiefdom?" Gunnar inquired. Hicuup sighed, but ran through the explanation quickly. "Your father is a smart man. I think I will talk to him when he gets back." Gunnar smiled, Hicup blanched and shook his head. I don't think that will be necessary, sir. I want to give this my best shot before we move on to the other options, Hicup explained, and Gunnar waved him away. It may not, but it would be a mutually beneficial arrangement. The Hofferson line is about to end. With the death of Ort, 3 years ago, there will be no one to carry on the name. This way at least our blood will still be important to Bert, Gunnar stated proudly. Hicup flinched and shook his head. Sir, could you please not tell Astrid? I would like to live for a while, Hicup said, while Gunnar smiled merrily. Don't worry about it, young man, I will speak with your father. Now, the two of you behave, you never know, she might like you. Gunnar shrugged as Hicup gave him a look of disbelief. She obviously likes you enough to train together, never seen her do that with anyone else. With this, Gunnar turned and headed out of the ring, leaving a stunned Hicup. A few minutes later, Astrid returned, cradling her hand. What happened to you? Punch a tree, or something? Hicup asked, amused. Nope, found Snotlout snooping and put 2 and 2 together. Let's just say he won't be seeing the sun through all that shade. Astrid boasted. They spent the next few minutes talking about what her father had said, and while Hicup tried to avoid it, the subject he feared the most came up. So you told him about the deal, she asks. Hicup pales considerably. Well, yeah, it kind of slipped out. Hicup says quietly. Astrid fixes him with a worried stare. What's wrong, Hicup? You look like someone threatened your life? Astrid asks, and he shakes his head. Not yet, I think you'll get to that part after I'm finished. Astrid raises her eyebrows and waits. He liked the idea. Hicup stammers and Astrid just shrugs. What's not to like? I think you will make a good chief. Hicup shakes his head. Not about me being chief. Astrid blanches. About us. Hicup explains before backpedaling a few feet. Astrid's face flits between emotions, anger, fear, interest, confusion, what Hicup thinks is agony, and surprisingly enough, joy, or disgust, though it looked too happy to be discussed. He what? Astrid growled, did you give him the idea? Hicup shakes his head. No. Gods no, well I mean would love it, but you would kill me if I did, Hicup blurts. Come on, your dad knows the houses too. He knows we're the only two not arranged. It wouldn't take him long to figure out who my dad would speak to. Hicup lowers his hands, knowing it won't do much if Astrid really wants to hurt him. Astrid slumps and takes a seat on the floor of the kill ring. Hicup approaches slowly, fearful it was all a ploy. Hicup waved a hand in front of the unresponsive girl before sitting down in front of her. They sit in an uncomfortable silence before Hicup breaks it. If it means anything, I'm sorry, he says while playing with his boots. If it were up to me, I wouldn't let them do it. I don't think my dad will listen though, you could do so much better than me. Hicup sighs. Astrid is quiet for a few minutes before she shakes her head. I don't know if that's true, I never thought about them. Astrid shudders at the thought. I always thought I would be a shield maiden, fighting for our tribe. She looks over to Hicup. I doubt I would be a good wife, you could probably do better than me. Hicup smiles warmly and shakes his head. Who are you kidding, you would make a horrible wife. Hicup commented. Astrid glared at him. Well, thanks a lot, jerk, she huffed. Hicup just smiled. Come on, you know you would end up wearing the pants. Astrid gave him a puzzled look. I can cook, sew, and clean. At the same time, I couldn't kill a dragon if it was tied up in front of me, Hicup smiles. You on the other hand, are tough, strong, independent, and I bet you couldn't cook to save your life. Astrid giggled softly, nodding. If I tried to do something stupid, you would probably smack me in the side of the head and tell me not to be an idiot, Hicup shrugged. Heck, it would be better if Dad named you chief. I could stay at the smithy and Burke would be stuck with Mr. and Mrs. Haddock. Astrid flinched at the name, but smiled, not totally repulsed. The pair sat on the floor, training abandoned, discussing the possibility of marriage, and near the end of it Astrid was able to say the word without stuttering or shuddering. They walked back across the village, talking again, and Astrid seemed to be okay with it. Well, I will see you tomorrow, Hicup, she smiled, Casting a look around, she turned and gave Hicup a quick hug. "Tell anyone I did that and you are dead," she states in a matter-of-fact tone. Hicup smiled and watched as she ran off before turning and walking to the forge. It was midday now and Hicup found the stall empty with a small note on the anvil: "Stay out of trouble, Hicup, but feel free to use the stall." Hicup smiled but grumbled when he read the last line: "P.S. Don't burn the place down." Muttering about the stigma he received over one accident, Hicup wanders into the back room. Taking out the design for the fin, Hicup realizes he has no idea how he will automate it. Trying to figure it out fails, and he decides that if he were to build the fin, maybe he could work it out from there. Quickly he gets to work. Using some blanks meant for oversized swords, Hicup forms them into rods before moving on to the joints. After 3 hours of hot and sweaty work, he realizes that bathing in the morning was a bad idea, as he would need one again, and he had a completed frame. Taking a roll of leather, he quickly cuts out the shapes he will need, stitching them together before attaching it to the frame. It takes him some time, but by the end he inspects his handiwork. Satisfied, he takes a look outside. The sun would be out for a few more hours, so Hicup closes the forge up and grabs the fin. Stopping at the docks to retrieve some fish, Hicup then heads to the forest. Hicup's mind replays all that happened that day, and every time he gets to the end of the fight with Astrid, Gunnar's words roll through his head: "And now I catch her on top of you," which causes Hicup to blush. He is glad no one is around. Soon Hicup finds himself in the cove. He is slightly less cautious of the dragon, but still doesn't completely trust him. "Hi, Toothless, I made you this," displaying the fin as Toothless looks interested. "But I don't know how I'm going to make it work with your other fin. If you don't mind, I would like to put it on you, maybe see if I get an idea?" Hicup explained. The dragon looks from Hicup to the fin and then spots the fish. "Yeah, I brought you some fish, no eel. You can eat that while I put this on, and then you can tell me if it's comfortable or not." Hicup smiled as the dragon nodded. Turning, Hicup kicked over the basket and stepped away to let the dragon eat. Navigating to the back, Hicup set the fin down beside the tail. While the dragon was engrossed with consuming the fish, his tail seemed to have a mind of its own. Every time Hicup would get close, it would move away, forcing Hicup to straddle the tail, careful of the other fins. With the tail secured, Hicup attached the fin. He had sized it right. The dragon shifted its real tail fin and Hicup got an idea. If he could connect some kind of guide to the real fin, the dragon would be able to shopping mode control it on his own. But before he could explain this to the dragon, he felt the body underneath him tense, as if preparing to leap. Toothless, don't you?" His words were cut off as the dragon leaps into the air, gaining altitude. Before they started to plummet, Hicup noticed his artificial tail was collapsed, which made sense. There wasn't anything to shopping mode control it. Quickly he opened the tail and the descent turned into a rapid ascent. "Oh my, it's working," he called out excitedly. Pulling the tail fin to the left, he noticed that the dragon turned left. "Bringing us back over the cove," Hicup shouted as loud as he could. "Toothless, we need to set down, you still have a passenger." Toothless looked back and noticed Hicup. With a sharp turn he flung him into the cove's large pond. Landing roughly, Hicup heard a distressed cry and then a larger splash in the pond. "I told you it wasn't ready yet," Hicup called out before chucking. Toothless huffed and swam to shore. Hicup followed shortly. "Listen, Toothless, I need to know if that's causing you any discomfort." The dragon in question shook its head. "Okay, good. Now I have to go soon. When I come back I should have something that will let you fly on your own, okay?" Toothless crooned in understanding. Hicup smiled before collecting the basket. "I will try to be back tomorrow. I'm sorry you have to wait so long to go home, just bear with me." Hicup smiled sadly and Toothless did his dragon impersonation of a shrug. Hicup really hoped he could get the dragon flying again. He would hate for anything to happen to him, and the sooner he was gone the better off Hicup would be. Things would get awkward if the village found out about him helping the dragon. Hopefully the dragon would stop attacking the village. He would have to ask the dragon about that before he left. Hicup made his way to his house and repeated the process he completed earlier. He was hoping he would have no interruptions as he enjoyed his second bath, but was sorely disappointed. The knock on the door caused him to groan as he called out. Just a minute, he started to clamber out of the tub. The door opened and the previous intruder re-entered. Hicup was a few steps from the tub facing the door when he noticed her and yelped, diving back into the tub. "Odin's beard, Hicup! Astrid was completely red. I'm really sorry, I should have, and you were, and I saw, everything. She stammered. Astrid. What is it with you and barging? Hicuup whined. Astrid seemed to forget why she was blushing and glared at the upper half of Hicuup. My dad sent me, he wants me to invite you over to dinner. Astrid's voice wavered, and Hicuup noticed her eyes slip down to the edge of the tub. You're staring. Hicuup points out. Astrid snaps her head up. Right, dinner at our house. He went to the elder and she gave the okay, she finished sheepishly. Hicuup groaned. Hydrun couldn't make the contract, but she could give Stoic's word when it related to courting her grandson. Now her comments about a strong woman were making annoying sense. Were all the adults in on this? Okay Astrid, I'll see you tomorrow. Hicuup said. Astrid smiles. Yeah, I will see more of you tomorrow. She groans. I mean, I will see you tomorrow. She amends, turning she sprints out the door, closing it quickly. Hicuup is left in the tub flabbergasted. Astrid just saw him, naked. It had started out as a pretty good day, and while it had just become a slightly more embarrassing day, she didn't run out screaming. Well, let me know what you think. I am now really late for work, so bye. For editing. The mistakes are